Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Protest at British High Commission ahead of the arrival of Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. A commitment for more housing solutions for those who live under very poor conditions. And later in sports, 20,000 fans to be accommodated for Champs 2022. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. The Advocates Network is currently staging a demonstration at the British High Commission in Kingston, calling for an apology from the British monarchy and reparations for slavery. The action comes just mere hours before the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge arrive at the Norman Manley International Airport. They are expected to arrive at 2:20 this afternoon. Our reporter Kirk Wright is at the British High Commission and now reports.
Thank you very much. I'm here at the British Council and let me take a look at the crowd. The crowd has grown. They started somewhere about 10:30 and from that the crowd has just been growing. The police have been here from before 10 o'clock because I came here about around that time. And we have Jarari, he's here. He's the, remind us who you are again, sir?
I'm the Vice President of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, founded by Marcus Mosiah Garvey in 1914.
Tell us, why do you think it was important for you to be here this morning?
It was terribly important for us to be here, all of us, and we wish more could be here, because we are representing a principle that will not go away until the British people have taken recognition of the need to give us reparation, and until our leaders recognize that we don't need to be associated in any colonial manner to the British government or the Queen of England. That's why I'm here, sir, to show the world and to help my brothers and sisters who are here, demonstrating the fact that we need to sever all colonial ties with Britain and all oppressive countries on earth.
You said something about apology earlier this morning.
Yes, apology is important, but apology without reparation is garbage. So if you want to do something good, dump the apology and give me some reparations. And I don't mean give me a ton load of money. I mean fix up my country, fix up the other countries in the world. Schools, hospitals, roads. Children who are underprivileged can't go to school. Feed them. Children who can't dress themselves, clothe them.
What do you think about the government welcoming the royals here?
I believe that the government is totally misguided. I saw where Mr. Andrew Holness went to England and accepted the highest award, the Privy Council Award from the Queen of England at a time when every other country in the Caribbean is getting ready to dump the Queen and to dump the control of the British over Jamaica. Our Prime Minister went there with his wife, who, by the way, she's a very dark complexion. He should have gone there demanding reparations on the part of himself, his wife, and his children.
Thank you very much, sir. There you've had it. Now the crowd is just growing out here, and we'll be here to monitor what happens and keep you up to date. Back to you.
Thank you. Now to other news. 2 men are dead and another injured following an attack at a bar in Westmoreland last night. The deceased have been identified as 22-year-old Nicholas Warlock and 35-year-old Sunil Leslie, both of Highgate, Darlaston, Westmoreland. It's reported that sometime after 10 o'clock, the men were at a bar in Whithorn, Highgate, when they were attacked and shot. Both men died at the scene. The attackers escaped in a waiting motor vehicle. Reggae artist Jacure has reportedly been sentenced to 6 years in prison in the Netherlands for attempted manslaughter. The sentence was handed down in a Dutch court today. The 43-year-old born Signature Alcock was charged in October last year in relation to a stabbing incident. He had faced up to 15 years in prison. Housing for those who live under very poor conditions. That commitment from the Prime Minister, who says a social housing program to build 70,000 units over 4 years will specifically target the indigent and persons on poor relief. Krista Campbell tells us more.
A 2-bedroom house worth 4.2 million Jamaican dollars. Certainly not the typical cost for that size unit in a housing market where prices continue to rise, barely in the reach of the average Jamaican. But it's part of the government's commitment to making more affordable housing solutions to poorer Jamaicans. At a handing over ceremony in St. Anne on Friday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness admitted that building 70,000 houses in the next 4 years is an ambitious target, but he insists it will help narrow the country's housing gap.
We're trying to rebalance the inequity by focusing our resources on those who really need it. And once you give it to those who really, really need it, that is how you increase the overall welfare of the society.
He calls it a social justice program designed with the poorest of Jamaicans in mind.
The government has a duty to create programs that will meet the price point for every Jamaican and for persons who have no price point at all because they're not employed, they have no income, they have no means. It is our duty to ensure that every Jamaican has a minimum standard of shelter.
He says this will be done through government subsidies.
The state subsidizing doesn't mean that it is free. The state subsidizing means that we are taking some of the taxes you pay and we are going to redistribute it to those who need it the most.
Now he says a census will be done this year, which will help the state know the exact needs of persons living below the poverty line so the social housing program can better target those in desperate need of proper housing. And he hopes as the program progresses, the houses will be built in a shorter time to meet the 70,000 housing units target. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
At least one former member of the Peace Management Initiative, PMI, is this afternoon labeling the government's crime preventative measures as a failure. Orlando Hamilton argues that the measures are not enough to deal with the rate of crime across the island. O'Shane Masters reports.
The Andrew Holness-led government has been using the zones of special operation to reduce the high homicide rate. In the past, the government has also used the states of emergency to tackle crime. But there have been calls in recent times from various stakeholders for stronger measures to be implemented to deter criminals, as they argue that the current measures have not been working. Former member of the Peace Management Initiative, Orlando Hamilton, says while there's a social component to the ZOZO, he still thinks there's more that can be done to reap the desired benefit.
As it relates to dealing with the main players who are involved in the actual day-to-day act of violence, in order to talk with them, in order to talk them out of their action. We are not seeing any mediation done on the ground between the different fractions who are involved. And these are the type of intervention and initiatives that the Peace Management Initiative have been doing, have done, and will do in order to stem and deal with this monster of crime and violence.
In terms of the types of crime that you're seeing done now, comparing to then when you were a member, can you just, what exactly do you think causing this?
I think there's a shift in culture every 10 years. There's a shift in culture.
Mr. Hamilton also believes that the approach in dealing with crime now is archaic. He notes that every 10 years there's a shift in how criminals operate. Hence, why he says a peace management initiative is needed.
We have seen some murders now totally unspeakable and unthinkable. We have never seen crimes like these before. Why? I don't know if it's because of the type of media that is influencing these type of actions and this type of behavior. I don't know if it's because of, you know, what the Bible said about this generation, you know, it's so ruthless. Yeah, I don't know if it's end-time prophecy or what, but I strongly believe that the communities do need social intervention program to deal with the social fabric of communities that are now deteriorating and have been causing the government such strain.
The Peace Management Initiative's Violence Interruption Program was funded by the Citizen Security and Justice Program through the National Security Ministry. According to the PMI, the program was effective in reducing conflict in crime-prone communities. But in 2019, the government cut funding, arguing that the program was not working. However, this call from former violence interrupter Milton Tomlinson.
I'd like for this government to repurpose, to bring PMI together, fund the programs, especially right now, the violence interruption program, and to put some teeth to it, and not just running the program, but also have some sustenance, have something to it, you know, things that the youth them can mainstream into.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And it's time now for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to Midday News and thanks for staying with us. Chief Executive Officer of Margaritaville Caribbean Group, Ian Dare, has joined those welcoming the reopening of the entertainment sector. Mr. Dare says the pandemic halted entertainment for the group. Mr. Dare, who was speaking at Margaritaville Resort in Montego Bay, St. James, added that with the reopening of the sector, his eyes are set on brighter days ahead.
Obviously for us as Margaritaville, entertainment is a huge part of our business. And you know, we've virtually been shut down from that entertainment component for almost over 2 years. So it has really hurt. You know, it has not been a fun 2 years, but we're here now, and so we're very thankful and appreciative.
The Nurses Association of Jamaica is still waiting on the government to call members to the table to start the negotiation process for April. The association's president, Patsy Edwards Henry, says so far they have had meetings with the finance ministry. The first took place in December last year and the second January of this year.
At that meeting, we pointed out to the Ministry of Finance that we were ready to come to the table to start the negotiation for the compensation review package, which should be implemented in April. That is April 1, 2022. We have written a second letter to the Ministry of Finance last month, and we have again reiterated our willingness and readiness to be called to the table.
In addition, Mrs. Edwards Henry says they are hoping that with the compensation review, in terms of posts, that discussions can take place where nurses can be employed with a level of stability of tenure. She says this is a major factor in the country to work. And here's Cody and Barrett with a Business Minute.
In the world of business, Professor of International Business at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Denzel Williams, is suggesting that Jamaica look to new markets for input substitutes to prevent shortages that will arise in light of the Ukraine-Russia crisis.
That if they don't get their supply contracts in early and these things are taken up by other players in the market, we may be left with a situation where our cost for raw material, etc., will skyrocket even more because we are not able to get them at a forward price today. Similarly, it's not just affording.
And in business internationally, banks have seized $2 billion in cash from ailing Chinese real estate developer Evergrande. Evergrande announced a delay to the publication of its annual earnings and that it won't be able to meet the March 31 deadline for publishing audited results for 2021, a year which saw it default on its debts as prices and activity in China's vast real estate sector slumped. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we go now to a look at the top regional and international stories. Here's O'Shane Masters.
In the region, despite the ongoing spread of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and the new variants, the Central Bank of the Bahamas says the domestic economy's gradual pace of recovery was sustained during the fourth quarter of 2021. In its latest quarterly economic review, the central bank said tourism output further strengthened, largely supported by ongoing gains in air travel and modest improvement in sea traffic. The central bank said that provisional data showed that the government's overall deficit reduced considerably during the second quarter of the financial year 2021-2022 relative to the corresponding period of financial year 2020-2021. On the international scene, Pfizer and UNICEF are partnering up to fight COVID-19 around the world. Starting next month, Pfizer will supply 4 million courses of Paxlovid, that's its COVID-19 antiviral pill, to UNICEF. The medicine will go to the people in 95 low and middle income countries, covering 53% of the world's population. Lower income countries will just pay a not-for-profit price, and countries with higher incomes will pay according to a tiered pricing arrangement. The announcement comes days after a statement by the medicine's patent pool that 35 companies will begin producing inexpensive generic versions of Paxlovid to increase access to treatment. And that's it for the top regional and international stories. I'm Shane Masters.
And it's time now for a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Renardo Brown is standing by.
Welcome back. It's now time for your midday sports. Now, competitions director for the ISA Boys and Girls Athletics Championships, Anthony Davis, says the changes to the schedule for the annual high school track and field meet this year reflect long-standing suggestions from coaches as well as the desire to spread the excitement over all 5 days. Speaking on Hits 92 FM Sports Grill on Monday, Davis said the decision to move the 100-meter finals, which were traditionally run on a Friday, to Wednesday's second day was just one of the tweaks made to the order of events.
So, for example, on the Wednesday, which is day 2, we actually have 16 finals. So we are encouraging persons to come out for the other days. So the 100 final is on the Wednesday. On day 3, we have 13 finals. We have the 400-meter finals, the 800 prelim.
Davis also explained that the 200 meters will now start on Thursday and have 1 round per day until the final is run on Saturday. He says the new schedule also gives athletes a chance to do a natural double as well as rest in between longer events. And despite 4 failures in the 2 first matches against England, Jamaican John Campbell looks set to keep his place for the decisive test against the tourists later this week. This as Cricket West Indies selectors have named an unchanged squad for the game in Grenada starting on Thursday. Campbell, who was dropped from the West Indies setup after the Sri Lanka series in the Caribbean last March, earned a recall after his 127 against Barbados in the regional 4-day championship. The left-hander was given the nod ahead of Trinidadian Jeremy Solazano, who suffered a concussion on his test debut against Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. However, Campbell has not repaid the faith put in him by lead selector Desmond Haynes after scores of 35, 22, 4 and 10 in the opening 2 tests against England. But despite going with the same squad, former West Indies opening batsman Philo Wallace wants to see a change in the order of the team.
When you look at our batting, Blackwood scored a good 100 in the first innings. Bonner struggle in Barbados. Brooks continues to be hot and cold. And there's no Kyle Mears waiting. Do we now take out Brooks and bring Kyle Mears at number 3? Or shift Bonner up to number 3? And the word over that camp is that nobody wants to bat at 3. So Brooks is slotted in there. I don't think that Brooks should be batting at 3. I think it should be Bonner. But there's a lot more. I've shown the temperament to bat longer.
The 3rd test bowls off on Thursday morning. And Australia have given the West Indies women another slim chance of making the semi-final of the ICC 50 over World Cup after the Aussies beat South Africa by 5 wickets in their game this morning. The Windies' surprise defeat to bottom-place Pakistan in their most recent match means they can only get to 8 points if they beat South Africa in their final preliminary game on Wednesday. Last evening's result now leaves the Windies, South Africa, India and England all fighting for the 3 remaining semi-final spots, with Australia already through. The West Indies' net run rate is so poor that they will have no chance of qualifying with 6 points. For West Indies to qualify, they must beat South Africa, who will in turn have to beat India in their final match. In that case, India will be eliminated and Australia, South Africa, England, assuming they win their last 2 games, and the West Indies will qualify. But a win might still not be enough for the Caribbean side should South Africa beat India. And defending champions Wilma's girls started the 2022 season of the ISA National Volleyball Championships with a 3 sets to 1 win over Campion College, 25-10, 25-15, 24-25, 25-13 on Monday. The girls of Camperdown High were also victorious, getting the better of Excelsior in a 5-set thriller, 25-24, 25-24, 25-20, 16-25 and 15-5. On the boys' side, Wilma's boys ran out to a straight sets win over Campion College, 25-15, 25-18, 25-14, while Camperdown defeated Tarrant High in straight sets, 25-11, 25-14, 25-14. The competition continues today with matches in the Central Zone, where St. Jago plays Denby High, while Frome Technical will battle Malden High in the Western Zone. And that's it for your Midday Sports Report. Anthony, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Renardo. And that's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.